Dun, 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 dun. Welcome back to another episode of RDY SET podcast. My name is Angus.
My name is Reem.
And we got two special guests here today. We got
Eva
and
Kenneth.
Hey! Thanks for joining this podcast. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Eva. I'm a social producer for Well Temple. It's a fintech based in Toronto. I'm originally from Montreal, but I've been living in Toronto for 9 years.
Nice.
I'm Kenneth. I'm an actor / comedian based out of Toronto, but I was raised in Vancouver, born in Hong Kong.
Oh, nice. Wait, so have you been in any movies then?
So it's going to come out next year. I have one called a Junkie Run. Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Exciting.
Yes, and a short film that's coming out that's written and produced by a Vancouver influencer by the name of Danger Bean. The film's called Killed Space, coming out this winter or next winter. Yeah.
Oh, sick. Wait, so how long have you been doing it?
I've been doing it for film and TV for like the last 5-6 years, I want to say.
6 years.
Comedy the last couple of years.
Nice.
And yeah, I've done like musical theater in London, England as well.
Oh, shoot. Wait, so I guess you studied this pretty early on. Like you knew this was your thing?
Yeah, I mean, I did it in high school for a while. And then, I kind of stopped because I took an actual acting class when I was like 19. I'm like, this is way too hard. It's very like vulnerable. Like real acting is actually like something that's very serious and like you need to reach deep down your emotions. You need to be real with yourself, like vulnerable. And at 19, like 20, I was just not there.
Well,
So yeah, over time, I gradually like wanted to perform again. And yeah, I did dance for a while in my early 20s, and then mid 20s around, I moved to London, England for a bit, and then got into musical theater there, and came back after my visa was up and did acting on film and TV for the last few years.
Yeah, because I heard getting into film or like acting is pretty hard, right?
It is.
Because the industry is doing kind of bad right now, isn't it?
The industry is at a kind of low point after the pandemic.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
everything slowed down and there were all these strikes happening.
Yeah.
So it's kind of slow, but a lot of people are saying it's going to pick back up. And
Nice.
we'll
Oh,
see
yeah.
how that goes.
Yeah, because the animation field, like it's doing pretty bad too.
Is it?
Like because I work in TV and games.
Oh, right.
But right now it's in games. But like animation, like everything is just like just constant layoffs. It's just so hard to find a job right now.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate I still have a job, but I have a lot of friends who get laid off and they just can't find anything, so it's kind of brutal out there. Yeah. But Well Simple though, it's kind of safe, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you would think. No, it is. It is. And I feel super fortunate because I do like creative production. So like, every time we have like a campaign or something like that, like we do a lot of stuff in-house. So like we have like a full like, copy and design team and everything. So we do a lot of stuff like ourselves, like the photo shoots and video shoots. So yeah, I'm happy that we have like a really creative forward company that, want to keep things in-house, not just hire agencies. So yeah, no, it's doing well. Yeah.
I use Well Simple.
me too.
Yeah.
I love it.
Hey, that's not what you
not.
Oh, you don't?
No.
I don't use it as that much anymore, but back then because they have crypto on it too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so back then that's the first thing I used for
Interesting.
Well Simple, and then after I don't use it anymore as much. But it's so easy though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so easy to use.
My sister's actually trying to convince the entire family to ditch the big three banks and just switch
Yeah.
over to Wealth Simple.
My God.
Yeah.
No, she's right. Like the fees that the banks put on you, like they really rip you off.
Yeah, they do.
When you can get like, I mean, I'm not trying to plug my company or whatever, but like,
no,
it's
plug it.
worth-
Plug it.
It's worth looking out, what's outside of like the more traditional banks. Like they do give you higher returns and like lower fees. And like in the end, like they want to make you life easier and not like have all these hurdles. Like I know like opening an account and having to go in person in a bank is like so complicated. Like their hours are always messed up and like you have a full-time job and no, I don't like that.
Yeah, don't they like Simple is pretty easy, but everything is like, I guess you have full control, right? You get to choose where you want to put your money into it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm so bad with that. That's why I draw pictures. But you being born in Hong Kong, our main topic is going to be immigrant parents, right? I guess the communication that we have our immigrant parents and how they grew up.
Yeah, how they grew up and, the struggles that came with being an immigrant parent, how they set up themselves where we can be successful,
When did you move over here?
I moved when I was 4.
Okay.
So I have very little recollection of Hong Kong
Yeah.
at the time. And even like just moving in general, I'm like, what's happening?
Yeah. Was it, you didn't have to like work when you were really young?
No.
Oh, like the stereotype.
No, I think I'm not sure if it's a joke of like, when parents tell you like, if you were in China, you might have to work.
Yeah. Oh, because that happened to me. I worked really young. That's why I was like, for me, it's a really stereotypical thing. I didn't even know what child labor was until a customer asked me, "Isn't this child labor?" I'm like,
wait, how old were you when you had to work?
Well, I worked when I was, I don't know, like elementary.
What?
Well, like I knew my first official like working job was grade 6. But then I was already working before that, like sweep the floor at the restaurant, like put stuff in boxes, like basically like child labor. This is literally what child labor is. But I was very shy back then. So I always worked at the factory because my parents own a manufacturing company, but also they own a restaurant back then as well. They don't have the restaurant anymore, but I was very shy. So I don't like confrontation. I don't like talking to people that I don't know. So I always work at the factory. But when I do have to work at the restaurant, you have to interact with customers. And then they would always ask me, like, sometimes they would ask me, like, oh, how old are you? And I'm like, I'm like 8, like 9. And they're like, oh, isn't this child labor? I'm like, what's child labor? I don't know what child labor is. So I would have to go back to school and ask my teacher that. And she's like, oh, it's when you work at a very young age and it's illegal. I'm like, what's illegal? I'm like, tell me more about this.
Yeah.
Until I found out what it was. And then I went to my parents. I'm like, this is child labor. This is not allowed. My parents are like, okay, we pay you. Then they start paying me. But then I didn't know what minimum wage was. So they were paying me 10 cents per hour. So in my head, I'm like, okay, 10 cents. If I work 10 hours, that's $1. That's pretty good. And then later I found out that back then, I guess like minimum wage was like $8. So I was like, I should have got $8. And then my mom's like, okay, we give you $8.
Oh, okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. But I was after like 3 years later, I'm like, man, so it is true. Stereotypical, like they do make you work. I guess for you, you lucked
Yeah,
out.
I thought I had it bad.
Wait, how bad was it?
I had to do some chores and
Oh shoot.
No, it wasn't too bad though.
Yeah, I think it's just because my parents are very like business people, so for me it's very transactional. They'll do they do the Asian thing where they're like, we do it out of love. Well, they don't say it, but they like, we feed you, we do this stuff, but if you don't like clean your room or you don't do what they want you to do, they're like, but we give you clothes, we do this, kind of guilt trip you in.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, okay, I'll do it,
Yeah, what made your parents think that they should be that harsh on you? What was it like for them growing up before coming here?
Well, they're trying to live, right? They're trying to make earning for their family, trying to make money for their family. So I think that's why they're a bit more hard. I guess was your parent pretty strict?
They tried to be.
Were you a good kid?
I was like a good kid, but I wasn't great in school. That's
Okay.
Like I wasn't in good grades. But that's more on me. I mean, they tried to be strict.
Yeah.
And my mom tried her best. But she was just she was so busy at work, and but my dad too, and so they couldn't really had too much of a hand on me, whereas my sister, they were a lot more strict on her, I believe, because she was the older one too.
She was the
Oh,
older.
so you're the youngest.
Yeah, I'm the youngest, so
Okay.
I had it easier.
a
I'd say.
little bit more leeway.
Yeah. and it's like they had one responsible one, I think, and they're like, we can go a little easier on. As I
okay.
abide by it, I think that's the reason.
Yeah.
Were your parents working so hard to a point where you don't have much memories with them growing up?
Yeah, they tried their best to give us some memories, but they were always working, so it was not as much as many other kids, I'd say. But we had enough. We had some good ones, but we were just it was just hard. Yeah, we struggled.
Yeah. For me, I think it's like a little bit different. My mom, she's from Quebec, and like she raised me. My parents were separated. But my dad is from El Salvador, and he lived for most of my childhood in Texas.
Oh, wow.
And so I would go see him every summer, every birthday, every Christmas and stuff like that. And, he came to Texas after divorcing my mom, essentially, in Canada. And when he was there, he didn't have any like legal status. Like he was just like an illegal immigrant. So whenever like I went to see him, he couldn't really take a vacation and stuff like that because like his job paid him under the table and stuff like that. So it was hard to go see him for like 3 weeks, let's say, and like we can only hang out during the weekends, and like he just leaves me to be with like other, like I don't know how it is for in Asian culture, but like for Latinos, like your community is really important, and so there's always like this lady in the neighborhood who's gonna like take care of all the kids during the day when their parents are working, and then you just like go pick them up. It's like daycare, but like you have kids of like all kinds of ages, and it's like a family thing. So I would spend a lot of time there, like away from my dad, and it was really hard because my first language is French and theirs is Spanish, and like at that point my Spanish wasn't really good, so I was just like lost essentially, and just like waiting for my dad all day. It was so like that part was hard of him, like being away from me and like having to work there and not being able to take time off.
Like I guess like all of our parents was like working super hard, so we really had time to spend time with them, right? So like do you find like now, do you find that the relationship, you guys are a lot closer because you're making an effort to make it? Because for me personally, maybe in my late 20s, that's when I started realizing that I have to make an effort to build that relationship, because I don't have that relationship right off the bat with my parents, right? Because they're always working, I'm always by myself, or I get taken care of by my grandparents, so I'm not that close. But now at this age, I'm like, shoot, I'm the one that needs to make that move. But it feels a bit weird, a bit awkward, because you're not even that close.
Never established that.
It's never established. So I don't know, like for you, do you guys feel like, oh, I'm pretty close now with my parents, or like it's not as close as I thought it would be, but I'm making an effort,
I'm definitely closer to my dad now. And I think the fun part, I mean, it's not fun, but the interesting part is that I think me working and entering the workforce made me closer to him. Like it feels like we have more things in common, I guess, like I don't think my dad's a communist, but like a little bit. And, he's always like, oh, like your boss is always wrong, blah, blah, blah. And, they try to rip you off, da, da, da. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, dad. And, so like we connect on like.
Screw the company.
Exactly. Like we connect on like things like that, and like the cost of life and things like that. And so for him, it's like we have more things in common than like when I was a teenager, let's say, and I was like listening to rock music and he was just not relating to that at all. So I mean, I think like in my adult life I'm closer to him for sure. And like a couple weeks ago, like we went to Chicago, the two of us, just like driving from Toronto to Chicago. And maybe 10 years ago that would have terrified me, but now it's like, no, like we're having a good time, and like I can like I learned to be myself with him, which really helped.
Sounds like you guys are like super tight.
Yeah.
You could tell him anything.
No.
Oh, okay, not that tight. Okay.
No, but I will say telling him that I had a boyfriend was like, it was like a big deal.
You're like sweating.
Yeah, I was like, oh, by the way, like I'm seeing someone, and it had been like 6 months maybe. He's like, 6 months? Like,
He's like,
it's not recent.
Yeah, why didn't you tell me?
Yeah, exactly.
And you're
So-
like, that's why you react too much.
yeah, like at first he was like, oh, like what's his background, and I'm like, oh, like he's Chinese, and he's like, oh my god, I'm gonna have Chinese grandbabies, and I was like, oh no, Dad,
That's so supportive.
I know, like he's seeing further than I am.
Oh,
but
nice.
Yeah.
That's a huge relief then.
Yeah. But it's hard when your parents are a bit old school. It's like you don't want to.
Oh yeah.
You want to show them like someone you're serious with, not
yeah.
like any relationship you're with. So
Yeah.
it was a big step for sure.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Sure.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What about you?
So I am closer to my mom now. But I had to take moving out. It's just because I don't know how it is for other Asians. I think East Asians. Primarily that it's like they're very smothery. I don't look bad. I don't know. But yeah, it's like I lived with my mom when I moved back from England. So it was just very like, oh, she's there all the time and she's very motherly, like I love her for it. But it's also like I'm an adult now. I could do things on my own, So it was kind of hard in that sense. And and also like I find that with Asian parents, especially, it's always like they always want to be an authority figure. They always want to have the control of some sort. Whereas like I would talk to like my Caucasian friends or other ethnicities. I'm like, oh man, I'm like friends with my parents.
And you say the first name too.
Yeah, it's like I'm friends.
Yo,
with
it blew my mind.
I could never do that. Mom, I was telling Eva, like I only know my grandma as Paw Paw. I only call her Paw Paw. I don't know her name.
And then they're at the password side. So what's your grandma's first name? You're like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's Paw Paw to me.
I call her grandma.
And my aunts and uncles too. It's like they call like their like Caucasian friends. They'll be like, oh yeah, it's my Uncle Bill. Or I'm like, no, that's my Kung Fu. Like there's like certain names you have to address them by. You don't know
it's like a respect thing.
Yeah, you can't call them by their like Chinese name.
They'll beat you. Because I remember like I grew up in like a lot of my elementary schools. Like a lot of my good friends are white. So when I went over to the house, they would always say their parents like their first name.
Yeah.
And first time I heard, I'm like, oh my God, are they gonna beat you? And you're like, why? I'm like, because you said the first name. It's like, it's okay to say the first name. I'm like, what? I'm like, it blew my mind. I didn't know that was even a thing until that. But I guess you like, due to respect, you say the...
I still do that. And like, I think I'm a lot closer to my mom now than I was when I was living with her. And just being more... I guess like growing as an adult too, you're like, oh yeah, I understand the struggle now too. It's like, I don't know, as a kid, you don't understand. Yeah. For me especially, I'm the worst kid. I think it's just like, I didn't understand like, oh, why couldn't we have this? Why are we like so stingy on this? Like, why are we going to fucking Dollarama, But now I'm like, man, I'm going to Dollarama.
If I can save money, I'll save money.
Yeah, man, I'm going to Dollarama for everything.
Time is tough.
Times are tough. And then I'm like, okay, like, it's just that understanding of like how hard they had it too. And I'm like, understand like they had to be a certain way, and knowing that helps me.
It's mostly like accepting. I guess when you grow older, you start to have a more of an open mind, and you start to see things like outside the box and like, oh shoot, that's why they did all that stuff. And I think that understanding kind of brings you closer to your family. But sometimes, like there's hierarchies, right? There's respect, but sometimes your parents could think a certain, the older you get, the more stubborn you get. But then you want to show them respect. Like, where's that boundary?
Yeah.
It's really tough.
It is. And I see that with my grandma and my mom, It's like my mom's like kind of babying my grandma. And I see that with my sister to my mom, I always like stand back from anything of those. Like, I sometimes try to chime in, but I'd mostly let them kind of.
Oh, really?
My sister would tell my mom certain things, like you should do it this way, you should do it that way. It was like my mom, is stuck in that stubborn state. Sorry, Mom.
Have you ever like tell your mom, no, this is wrong? You're getting flashbacks of like her doing this, and you're like, oh.
I mean, I did when I was younger.
Oh.
I mean, like, I didn't know, like, because she immigrated from Hong Kong, so
Yes.
she was like used to haggling and like
Oh, yeah.
saying all these certain things. So like even like I think we were at Sears when I was a kid, and she was trying to hassle for like a vacuum, and I'm just like, no, mom, you can't do that. It's not. This isn't the culture here, you know. But she's like, no, let me do it.
And she's like, watch me, and you're like, I'm already watching. You're not allowed. They're gonna call the cops.
security's coming to grab her. Yeah, took her to mall jail. But no, like now I think she understands the culture more now, and like she doesn't do that certain thing, But no, I try to let her do her. She's stuck the way she is, and she gets away with it. Also, it's like I didn't realize this. I mean, now there's like such a bad or derogatory term towards white women that are older as Karens.
Yeah.
But and I realized, sorry, mom, but she was a Karen, because it was just like she wouldn't take shit from people, because she was an immigrant mother, like coming, like, when someone disrespect her, like, the bill is wrong or certain thing. I'm like, oh no, like I want to be a good minority, Oh, don't say anything, mom. It's okay. Like, let's just pay it. Let's just go. I don't want to cause a scene. And she was very like, no, we gotta get this dealt with. This needs to be taken care of. I'm not gonna be taken advantage of.
Yes. Yes.
And it's like it's a good thing. And I feel like now it's like it's looked down upon in a way, and I don't know. It's not cool.
Yeah. I think it comes down to the scenario, right?
Yeah.
But that's true. I mean, like, but I feel like people always try to take advantage of each other, like, and it shouldn't happen.
Yeah, props to your mom. Props to your mom. Seriously,
especially older ladies. Older ladies should stick up for themselves.
Yeah, and it's hard coming here because they don't really have friends. Like language barrier. So they're thinking like, oh, you're different, so we're gonna try to scam you in a way. No one wants to be taken advantage of. So everyone's trying to fight for themselves, kind of thing, and your family. So it's a little bit hard. I don't know. Is your dad more like, I'm not going to get taken advantage of. I'm going to put my foot down.
No, he's very passive in some ways. And like, I think that kind of made me having to help him out for a lot of things. Like, I need to call the insurance company.
You do everything.
You have to do like the documents and like paperwork for him
100%.
too.
Like when I was, I don't know, I think 15, that's when he came back to Canada, and he was like married, had a wife, and she was also Salvadoran, and so she needed like papers right in Canada. So he like sponsored her, and like, who am I at 15 reading the legal documents and filling the forms of like where she lived from 18 years old to now, it's like, so my dad was like, that was his way of like protecting himself, was like asking me to do it because I speak the language, I understand it. So it was like, can you read this? Can you, like, he keeps his mail and makes me read it, when I go visit him to make sure that it's okay. And like, never ask him his Wi-Fi password at home. Like, there's no, we don't know where it is, So like he was really relying on me, I think, for a few years. He's a bit better now, but like I do stuff for him on the computer and things like that. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Have you ever teach your parents to use the computer? Yo, it's crazy.
Yeah. Honestly, like, I just got into the Apple stuff. Like,
I
You
can't
made the switch.
I made the switch.
It's so hard. Apple stuff.
And I realized, it's like it's learning something completely new.
Yeah.
And I got frustrated. Like, I'm like, man, why can't someone just like
drag and drop?
Yeah, like or like teach me, like point things out to me. So I understand now, like my parents' struggle of like, oh, can you like show me how to like you click around so quickly, like how to do this? Because now I'm like on Apple or like at my iPhone, I'm like, what? I have to relearn everything. It's like such a different interface or database from like Microsoft. And I'm like, oh man, it's like something new. I don't want to relearn everything. This is so difficult.
Yeah.
So I understand why they need us to help them.
Yeah, because my parents, my mom had an is that called iTunes?
Like an
Or
iPod?
iPod, I
Yeah.
guess. And she wanted to put music in her iPod, but there's like an Apple software for it.
Yeah,
It's like
iTunes.
iTunes, but you got to sync the music to put in your
Yeah.
iPod. So I didn't know because I came from, this is why I only use like Android or Microsoft products. I just drag and drop, right? It's the easiest. But then you have to sync and you got to do a bunch of stuff. I swear, I spent like 2 hours trying to sync music. I told my grandma, I can't do it. I don't know how to do it. I was like, you use computer. You should know how to do it. I'm like, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. Like, how does that work? So even to this day, I don't know how to use Apple products. That's why I like any Apple products, I stay away. They're supposed to be made easier. It's supposed to be a lot more easier, more straightforward. I don't know. It's hard, man.
I know. I recently taught my dad how to use a printer. Like,
Yo, printers.
Printers are hard.
Even I don't even know how to use a printer.
I
At my
know.
office, I like staring and I'm like, I just want to print. And then you have to scan, like for my office, you have to scan a QR code.
yeah.
It's you need it, like I have to swipe my badge, and I'm like I just want to print a paper. That's it. This becomes a whole thing, and I spent like 30 minutes. I couldn't do it. So how, like for your dad, like how long did it take him?
It was like a whole Saturday afternoon.
Oh.
Like, first, how did it go? I think I bought him the printer first, and then I brought it home, and then we realized it was wrong because it couldn't do double-sided. So we're like, okay, now we got to go back to Best Buy, buy a new printer, bring it home, and then install it. And yeah, it was a whole thing. And he doesn't even print that much, you know? It's like, why do you need a printer now?
But
So,
it's the thought. He's like, my daughter did this.
honestly, yeah. And like, it's only been in the past couple of years, I think, that he's now saying like that he's proud of me. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like gold.
He
you
said
know?
that to you?
Yes. And he even told me he loved me, which is like crazy.
Yo.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God, Dad. Like,
Have
yeah.
your mom said she loves you?
Yeah, I mean, in certain ways, like it's not
Not verbally, right?
The words.
Yes.
We need the
Yeah,
words.
yeah.
It's the words hits different.
Yeah.
Hits different.
Yeah.
She's prouder this year now, because I've been a lot more successful in my career,
Yes.
my acting comedy career. But yeah, for a while, she was always like, "You should do something else."
No
Like,
way.
at something, doing something else. But now she's a lot calmer. Now she's like, you know, she's retired and she's happily just living her life now. So
Yeah.
she's less like hands on with me and wanting more from me. I mean, she sees that I'm surviving and doing the thing I love. So she's like, okay, at least I'm happy for him in that sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think at the end, your parents just want you to be happy and then successful. That's
Yeah.
it. Right? Like they don't want you to feel like you're sad all the time.
Yeah.
But whenever I can see why your mom was giving you like, maybe you should try something else because they want to make sure that you're secure
Yeah.
in the future, right? You're not struggling like they did. So, but then it comes off very negative.
Yeah.
Because you're like, why can't you be supportive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, you know, all the Caucasian kids, you know, they got like supportive parents. So it's just like they can do whatever.
I know. It's different. I told my mom, I was like, hey, I just want to feel supported. I literally told him like, this is my way of learning and my way of feeling that you got my back. And my mom answered back saying, you'll never get this. And then she's like, you can't compare yourself with other people. And I'm like, I open my heart up to you and you say that? I'm like, I understand where you're coming from. But like, damn, it hurts.
Yeah.
After that, I was like, man, I'm not telling you anything.
I know.
Like after that, I'm like, man, I guess that's when I realized they're getting to an age where they're stubborn. I guess they won't change because they've been doing it the whole lives.
Yeah.
So now it's my duty to kind of adapt to if I want to build that relationship.
Okay.
So that's how I see it now is that they've changed as much as they can. They already lived life through all the hardships. And now they're going to do the best they can through their capabilities. But I can't expect them to change just like that.
Yeah.
It takes time, right? So now I have to be flexible and be like, hey, I understand where you're coming from. It hurts, but it's okay. But kind of hard because it hurts. So I'm at that stage where I'm trying to like just be a bit more giving and understanding.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a very tough tough thing. I know your mom is so loving though.
And she is. Growing up, she did shower us with a lot of words of affirmations.
Yeah.
Like she's
Nice.
proud of us. She loves us. And I don't know. I grew up with both my parents from two different cultures.
Yeah.
Saying that, our entire lives, we've changed your diapers, all three of you. And then when we become old, it's your turn to change our diapers. Like they would guilt trip or like basically prepare us into half of our lives, they take care of us. And then half of their lives, it's up to us to look after them. My mom has always been a loving mom, but, just echoing back what you said, my mom moved here to Canada first. And my siblings and I had to live without her for basically 12 years.
Wow.
And we only had an idea of what my mom was through, long distance call. And the moment I met her, that same distance that was, supposed to bring us closer tore us apart. My mom, in my mom's head, she still thinks I was the 10-year-old she left behind. And I still think she was the version of my mom, before all the chaos, before the 4 jobs. I still treated her that way, but she was a completely different woman. And I lived with her when I moved here for maybe about 8-9 months until I couldn't take it anymore. We were both caregivers of the house, so we had different conflicting ideas of how the house should be run with 2 younger siblings, with my school if I wanted to go back. And so there was so much head clashing that she eventually kicked me out. And, as bad as it may seem, from going through homelessness and going into a transitional housing, that very same distance brought us back together. So now I'm way more closer to my mom, and I am way more in tune and more forgiving because I saw where she was coming from. She lost her chance of becoming a mother, and now I have to cut her some slack and give her a chance being a mother again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I also went back to live with my dad after never living together essentially, and I stayed with him for 6 months, and I was like, that's enough. I'm a fully formed adult, and I can't live with him and his wife, and they have their way of living, and no, I had to leave by myself. No, that was really hard. And now it's I realize that we're closer when we're more apart essentially. It's we live our own lives and whatever, and then when we meet is when we have a good time and a good relationship.
So to wrap up, there is to have a healthy relationship with your parents, you gotta be more understanding.
You have to be an adult.
Yes, I think when you're at a young age, it's really hard to see your parents' perspective. I think the biggest thing is just patience with your parents, and then try to give them, just put yourself in their shoes. And if they're being a hater, then maybe just move out. I don't know. I was really happy when I moved out. It really, for me anyways, it really brought my relationship closer. Because being in a household and that tension is just too much for me. But I think, definitely seeing your parents' perspective. Be nice to your parents.
Be nice.
Yeah. So thanks for tuning in for this podcast. All our socials in the link tree below. Put in the comments. Let us know if you went through something like this before, and how do you build that relationship and closeness with your parents. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see everyone on the next one. Bye.